The film opens with Arthur Fleck applying clown makeup in a mirror. He smiles briefly before the grin disappears, presenting a melancholy countenance. Arthur Fleck then appears as a hired clown carrying a placard outside a business. Teens stole and beat him for his sign. Arthur Fleck is bullied and has a problem that makes him laugh inappropriately. Crime, unemployment, and poverty plague Gotham today. Arthur sees a social worker for medicines and mental health difficulties. A youngster watches Arthur on the bus home. His mother advises Arthur to leave him alone despite his stupid looks amusing him. Arthur giggles uncontrollably. When his mother asks him, he offers her a note explaining that he laughs because of a mental illness. Arthur comes home to a high-rise housing complex with his sick mother Penny, Frances Conroy. Murray Franklin's TV chat program is their post-dinner entertainment. Arthur imagines being on the show and attracting Murray. Arthur charms Murray and the audience by saying he takes care of his mother in his fantasy. Murray embraces Arthur on stage in front of everyone. Penny used to work for Thomas Wayne, Brett Cullen, and is enamored with the wealthy, writing to him to improve their living status. After learning about the mugging, Randall, Glenn Fleshler, gives Arthur a revolver at Ha-Ha's for protection. Arthur is apprehensive and relieved to acquire a weapon as weapons are illegal at work, but he gains confidence after acquiring one. Soon after, his callous, unfeeling supervisor chastises him for missing the sign and deducts the sum from his compensation. Arthur only smiles cruelly. Arthur falls for his neighbor Sophie Drummond, Zazie Beetz, a single mother. She gently discusses subjects he can connect to. He seems awkward and odd with her when attempting to impress her. He once follows her all day. She visits his apartment later and asks whether he was following her. He says he was, but she doesn't seem bothered. He invites her to his stand-up gig. Her reluctance is overcome by his charm and wit. Arthur watches comedians to learn the profession, but his fake laughing makes him feel uneasy and out of place. Arthur performs in the comedy club. He unwittingly laughs so hard he can hardly talk to cope with his nerves. He then starts his unfunny routine. Sophie is the sole audience member laughing at Arthur's jokes. This comforts him to jest despite his inner pain. Arthur subsequently performs as a clown at a children's hospital. The pistol he brought falls to the floor. Later, Arthur's employer scolds him. Arthur begs for a second opportunity, but his boss dismisses him immediately. Finally, Randall humiliates Arthur by saying he acquired the gun. Arthur sees three inebriated young Wall Street workers for Wayne Enterprises harassing a woman on the subway home from Ha-Ha's in clown costumes. Arthur laughs accidentally, attracting the males, while the woman smartly escapes the automobile. Arthur is mocked and laughed at before the men beat him. Arthur defends himself, but they gang together and knock him down. After having enough, Arthur takes out his revolver and shoots two of them in self-defense before pursuing the final guy out of the train and killing him on the steps. Arthur hides in a neighboring public men's room, shocked by his actions. After furious pondering, he feels a power and dances alone. He sees himself in the filthy mirror as a bruised, smeared, strong clown and embraces it. He hides the gun and returns to the apartment building to kiss Sophie for the first time. The three killings are reported, with some calling them an assault on the affluent and others supporting them. Thomas Wayne denounces it, calling the lower-class clowns a symbol they cherish. Arthur confronts Randall about betraying him and smashing the time-punching machine before cleaning out his locker at Ha-Ha's the next day. Happy and free, he exits. News reports depict clown rioters causing mayhem in the metropolis and criticizing the rich. Arthur discovers he created this and realizes his actual potential, which makes him happy. Arthur discovers one of Penny's letters to Thomas, proving he is his son. Arthur encounters Bruce Wayne, Dante Pereira Olson, at Wayne Manor. After doing a magic act for Bruce, he sticks his hands through the fence and makes him grin, understanding they may be brothers. Alfred, Douglas Hodge, intervenes and tells Arthur to go. Arthur acknowledges his mother's Thomas engagement. Alfred says he recalls Penny, but she lied. Arthur nearly strangles Alfred through the bars but finds Bruce watching. Arthur regains control and leaves Wayne. Arthur sees Thomas in a public art theater that night. Arthur disguises himself as a theatrical usher. He pursues Thomas Wayne into a men's lavatory to confront him about being his father. Arthur recalls Penny, as does Thomas. Thomas admits that Penny was his housekeeper, but he argues she was psychotic and Arthur couldn't be his son. Thomas also says Penny never informed Arthur he was adopted, which Arthur adamantly denies before giggling wildly. Thomas becomes protective and hits Arthur in the face before throwing him out of the building, oblivious of his condition. Arthur goes home and pummels himself by hitting the fridge with his head in misery and yearning. The following day, Burke, Shea Wiggum, and Garrity, Bill Camp, police officers investigate Arthur at his apartment about the train killing since the suspect was wearing clown makeup and he lost his job earlier that day. Arthur denies participation and dismisses the detectives. Penny gets sick and is hospitalized soon after. Sophie watches Arthur care for his mother. Arthur is wounded when he sees Murray's TV show broadcasting a clip from his stand-up performance to humiliate him in the hospital. Murray's show rep calls Arthur later. Arthur grudgingly accepts his guest invitation. Arthur kills himself in front of the audience after observing other comedy show interviews, thinking it will make them laugh. Arthur visits Arkham Asylum and talks to Carl, Brian Tyree Henry, a clerk with a penny file, for proof. When Carl refuses to give Arthur the information, Arthur steals the file and rushes away to study it. Arthur studies the documents on a stairway and discovers that Thomas was speaking the truth. Penny adopted Arthur after he was abandoned as a newborn and beat him and tied him to a radiator with her abusive partner. The documentation describes Arthur's head injury, which presumably prompted his laughter. Arthur tells Penny in the ICU that he believed his life was tragic but now views it as a fucking comedy. He suffocates Penny. Arthur returns home and breaks into Sophie's flat. She sees him and is horrified, imploring him to go for her kid. Arthur asks whether she's ever had a really bad day, and she says she doesn't know him. This shows that Arthur imagined every other Sophie moment. Arthur apologizes for his intrusion and storms out of Sophie's apartment, shattered and enraged. Arthur prepares for Murray's presentation by painting his face white. Randall and Gary, a dwarf former co-worker, visit him in his residence. After Penny's death, they express condolences, but Randall mentions Burke and Garrity heading to their residences to interview them about the subway killings. Arthur snaps and savagely stabbed Randall twice in the face before crushing his head against the wall after realizing Randall is using him to hide his butt. Gary pleads for release, scared by Arthur's actions. Arthur consents before frightening him. Gary can't undo Arthur's door lock owing to his height. Gary asks Arthur to open the door for him, which Arthur does without hesitation, thanking Gary for being the one good person in his life. Arthur kisses Gary's forehead and releases him. Arthur then colors his hair green, wears clown makeup, and a burgundy suit. He then dances down the stairs, enjoying his craziness and carefree existence. Burke and Garrity arrest Arthur for dancing in the street. Arthur escapes, and they follow him into the subway train where scores of Gothamians are costumed as clowns, inspired by the killings. Arthur takes a clown mask from a protester and ignites a train car brawl. One clown blocks the investigators' pursuit of Arthur, and Burke accidentally shoots him dead when they fight with his revolver. Arthur escapes the encroaching police troops after the clowns pull the investigators from the train and beat them mercilessly. Arthur meets Murray and Jean, Mark Maron, at the TV station. Arthur requests Murray to call him Joker, as Murray called him that before playing his tape. Before continuing, Murray asks Arthur if his clown makeup is political. Arthur says, "No. I don't trust anything." Arthur watches Murray broadcast a struggling Arthur telling a joke while waiting to be introduced. Arthur's thoughts and ambitions alter, and he dances in the spotlight. As the performance starts, Arthur leaves. He uncomfortably tells Murray a dark joke that nobody else gets. Arthur confesses to subway killings after being challenged. Murray and the audience gradually understand Arthur is serious. Arthur claims that the audience only cares about the victims because Thomas Wayne spoke for them and anybody else like him would be disregarded and passed over. As Murray and the crowd get angry, so does Arthur. Murray chastises Arthur, who snaps and tells another joke. Smirking, he says, "What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash?" Murray tries to silence him before phoning the police. Arthur shouts, "You get what you fucking deserve," and blows Murray's brains out in front of everyone. The crowd flees in panic, and the murder is broadcast instantly. Arthur laughs for the first time ever. Following Arthur's actions, Gotham is invaded by clown-clad rioters. After a movie, the Waynes encounter commotion in the streets. Thomas leads Martha, Carrie Louise Putrello, and Bruce into an alley, but a clown follows them and tells Thomas he's getting what he deserves using Arthur's Murray Franklin show joke. He shoots Thomas and Martha dead in front of Bruce. Arthur is being detained by cops. Arthur smiles joyfully as he peers out the window at his damage and chaos. Just then, Ambulance clowns crash into the car, killing the police and releasing Arthur, who is unconscious and injured. Arthur awakens to a crowd of clown-masked mobsters celebrating. After receiving the respect he has long sought, the rioters celebrate Arthur as he stands atop a car and accepts their adulation. He dances to their cheers and stops when his nose bleeds heavily. He then puts blood on his top lip and smiles before standing like a deity before them. Arthur is imprisoned in Arkham Asylum. Following this anecdote, he chuckles and imagines little Bruce standing over his parents in the alley. After realizing he had transformed Bruce into himself, Arthur laughs again, thinking this humorous. He tries to tell a new social worker, April Grace, a joke, but she doesn't understand. Arthur leaves the room a few minutes later, leaving bloody footsteps, before orderlies follow him.